He's calling.
And I'm going to record it all.
Assalamu alaikum, my sister.
This movie left me shocked that this actually happens in the world. Movies by Timur. How do you pronounce his name? I can't pronounce his name.
Timur, it's perfect.
Timur. And it's a true story. It's called Profile. And this undercover journalist, you play a British journalist, but in real life, it was a French journalist who went undercover to find out how these women are being recruited into ISIS from all over Europe. And it's shocking because you see how you get suckered in, because from the outside, we're like, oh, these women are really dumb and how can they fall for this? But you really see like how they can actually fall for it. So what was it like for you being part of this project? Was it shocking for you as well?
I think it was really shocking when I first started to research the role and just see how prolific the problem was at the time, just how many women were leaving from all over Europe, how many young girls in particular. And at the beginning, I had the same feeling as you of like, you know, why would you leave? Like, why would you go to you know, a country that's torn apart by war? But the more research that I did, the more you understand, you know, it's, and when we look, and when, you know, when we look at these characters just and take them out of context of the story, they are just two lonely people who have found each other, you know, whether, you know, how did Bilal fall for Anna as well? You know, like the lines are definitely blurred between these two, I think. But it was interesting because, you know, she's a mature, you know, educated, ambitious young reporter. She's not a 16-year-old girl, and yet she found herself in a very difficult and compromising position. So I think the power is definitely there, and something that I don't think we've seen before. I think it really depicts how easily one is manipulated or can be manipulated, and especially online.
And this movie was filmed pre-pandemic, correct?
Yeah. 2008.
Isn't it so funny that it feels like it was shot during, because it's all shot in computer framing, you know, so we see people messaging you as you're talking to him, you're recording your screen. It was so bizarre. Plus I was on my phone and I was like, I'm doing the same thing she's doing. It's so weird.
Yeah, exactly. It's like how we live now, you know, and I think that's why Timur is so clever, is that he, you know, had the foresight to see the way the world was going. And obviously the pandemic meant that we couldn't leave the house. The only way of communicating with people was via Skype, via FaceTime, via Zoom. And so it's mad now. I think it'll be interesting to see, you know, what audiences make of it, whether they're like, oh yeah, this is a perfect pandemic film, when actually it's not at all. It's so pre-pandemic.
And it's sort of a PSA for how things can go wrong on social media. I think it was intended for good purposes and in terms of being in touch with the world. Yeah, it just opens it up to so many issues, like we're seeing the trolling and, you know, this propaganda, how propaganda is spread. And then on both sides, right? You have propaganda on like regular political stage and propaganda on the ISIS level. I mean, I'm sure during the pandemic, it's gotten even worse. People recruitment, you know, because you said people are lonely right now.
People are lonely, you know, and there's nothing to sort of show you comparison or give you like a relative idea of what other people are going through. It's just like we're all in these little boxed rooms, especially in cities, you know, in little box rooms, and our only means of communication is this little box. And it is bizarre. I think about like when I grew up, I just did not have any electronics in my life, you know, and it had a great childhood. And so it's an interesting look at, especially for young girls and young people, how it's a dangerous, murky existence, you know, if you live completely on your phone and on your laptop.
Yeah, I was just talking to a neighbor of mine, and she was saying her kid didn't know how to jump rope, and most kids don't know how to jump rope. I'm like, oh my God, that's so tragic.
That's so crazy, you know, and parents are constantly trying to like figure out when screen time is. Like when, you know, when is the screen time allowed? It's like, yeah, it's a different world. So I think, yeah, this film has come at a very apt moment in time. And screen life in general is just such a unique way of filmmaking.
Right. And speaking of filmmaking, you were the cinematographer. You were pretty much doing everything yourself, making sure you had some good lighting. I was reading the notes that you had to adjust when you're in front of a window. So you're like,
Yeah.
oh man, that's a big responsibility for an actor, not just to, worry about their performance, but now you have to worry about, is everything okay? Does this look all right? So can you talk about that experience?
Well, I think, what was interesting is that actually it enabled me to really forget about my performance and not think about how I looked or what I was doing, because I was so focused on, it felt like I was always so focused on getting myself ready for a call with Bilal, because it was always like, getting ready for a take, the takes would run for like 15, 20 minutes because there's no lighting set up, there's no scene changes, it's just me on the computer having these conversations. And so because a lot of it was improvised, we would just keep going. And so there's something, although you could see yourself, which was a very hard thing to like get over, after a day of that, you stop seeing yourself and you really just, you were focused on making this as real as possible, in the limited scope. How do I make this character and this story dynamic and interesting?
And speaking of Bilal, he's easy on the eyes, of course, so makes it easy. The actor is Shahzad Latif. So I was reading that you rehearsed with him in person, but then they sent him away to a far country to kind of mimic the dynamic on screen.
Yeah, which I think really worked actually, because it meant that we couldn't, have a drink together after work. We just didn't see each other. So we had this very intense rehearsal period where like we knew the material inside and out. We rehearsed it like a play, so that there was never a moment of like, oh shit, I don't know my lines. There was no sides. There was just none of that, And then when he left, you could really feel the distance. And I definitely think it helped both of us to connect, to really have to connect on screen, because there was no way of doing it any other way, and all of the frustration of something breaking down or like Skype going off, it was like real. And it was like the next time that we'd be even more like into the conversation, because it was Amy and Bilal's conversation that had dropped, not Valene and Shahzad's,
The life or is it art imitating life?
Yeah, art imitating life, exactly.
Hey, baby! What are you looking at?
Nothing, I'm looking at you.
You wouldn't lie to me, would you?
What do you want people to take away from this film when they're watching? Do you think it'll really shine a light on your own habits of what you do at home, on your computer, on your phone?
I hope it will make people more aware of how much you can end up giving away when you don't realize that you are. I think we're all just guilty of entering information, clicking on things. I think because it feels so real, there's something about watching this, especially if you watch on a laptop, that you maybe hopefully will be more aware of like, also it's a mad time that we are how much we multitask on a screen. FaceTime, messages, emails, screens, minimize. It's actually like, it's a sort of like microcosm of what our life is like now, that like we think we can multitask, like, that weird computers. And actually, I think what the pandemic has done, which it definitely has done for me, is like make me just like calm down a little bit and not think that I can get everything done. There's no getting everything done,
And that was the intensity, part of the intensity, that you thought, oh, she's going to accidentally share her screen and he's going to see it. And it's like, it's just really intense.
Yeah.
You're like, stop it.
You're really behind her, I think,
Yeah.
I think we're behind Amy to sort of, and we don't want her to keep doing what she's doing. I think there's the audience is like, no, please don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, congratulations on the film. It was riveting. I can't believe how much, it really revealed about ourselves and our culture, not just specifically about this one topic, but in general.
Yeah, totally.